Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, exactly what we needed. Yet another Stormlight Archive video. Anyway, I wanted to just just throw my 2 cents in there and start this off by mentioning that I've always found it amusing that this seems to be the most beloved book of this series so far, but the main character, the main POV, I should say, for this book is Shalyn, who's one of the most disliked characters in this series. So, yeah, dwell on that little conundrum for a bit there. But anyway, what is Words of Radiance about? Basically, it picks up right at the end of The Way of Kings, and Shalyn is now on her way to the Shattered Plains, having secured her family for the moment, and also and doing it in a way that also allows her to continue her wardship ostensibly. Then Kaladin and Bridgeford, they've moved over to Dalinar's war camp, and they're they're now tasked with protecting him and the Colinar royal family at a time when the divisions between the Alethi High Princes are becoming more and more pronounced, shall we say. Um, and then there's Dalinar himself, who has finally decided on a course of action he wants to take, and he intends to bring the war to an end once and for all. So that's kind of where Words of Radiance is, like the major points of it, basically. Um, and honestly, I absolutely get why this is everyone's favorite book. Like, this is the one where it feels like things really open up. If The Way of Kings was all introduction, this is the one where things, like, you really start to hit the pedal to the metal. Like, Shalyn's POV in particular, her POV is the main one in this book, meaning, like, her is the main flashback and that kind of thing. And through her arc, we get quite a bit of exploration of this world, and when I say exploration, in terms of like the shadier, like the more grand scheme of things that's happening in the background, like that's that for me that it was pretty entertaining to read all of that. Like, there's always layers to everything, and with her particular POV, we get exposure to yet another layer of this world, and all the mechanics and the political scheming between the different groups and the different high princes that have an investment in the Shattered Plains War. So there's that. In addition to that, like Shalyn, like these characters, it seems that each book with each book I should say, they undergo dramatic changes. They do undergo fully fleshed out arcs in each book, and in this one we see Shalyn really start to evolve from just this kind of sheltered noble woman into someone who needs to stand on her own and stand on her own and function in multiple areas, in multiple facets, to deal with the multiple threads and the multiple lives that she's living. So there's that. And then we have Kaladin, who is like everyone's fanboy, and he gets absolutely tortured in this book. Like, in this one, he's now sworn I think the second ideal, and at the start of this book, and this book is him grappling with the consequences of that and what it means for his like in terms of like his moral compass. He deals with a lot of questions that have to do with just like a lot of he deals with like a lot of conundrums that he now faces due to swearing these ideals, with things like justice, morality, that kind of thing, as he justice, morality, privilege, bias, and these kind of things, as he's sworn these ideals, and he's forced to grapple with them when his past starts to come back in ways that haunt him, not just in like the actual in people from his past who've wronged him in different ways, but in some of the situations that he faces, and the way that he chooses to interpret what he's seeing and that kind of thing. Like he has to, he's being torn apart essentially. His moral fabric is being challenged, and he has to, once again, he has to decide on the course that he wants to take that will give him the most peace, or at least allow him to live up to the ideal that he sworn, if he can. So yeah, that was pretty fast. I won't lie, that was pretty fascinating to read about, and it also introduced like a pretty interesting concept with regards to what we barely understand about the Radiance. This particular journey of his, because we do see some things that happen that you wouldn't think was possible. Like it's not something you ever really see happen in fantasy books, but it was really interesting to read about, as I was saying. And then there's all the other POVs. This book we have quite a few moments with Dalinar, but for the most part he's largely a side character. Adeline takes a little more, comes a little more to the forefront in this book, and over their storylines, you see some interesting stuff, you learn some interesting stuff. This book in particular has one fight scene about 6 to 7% of the way through that scene just lives rent free in my brain. Honestly, I think I prefer it over the climactic fight of this book, which is really saying something. It was nuts. It was nuts. And of course, it marked a major turning point in not just the book but the series with what happened there. But I think this book, for one of my pet peeves with Sanderson, it really came to the forefront in this book. Like I've been reading through all the Cosmere books in this, like consistently through up to this point, and one thing that it really strikes home with each book is that Sanderson is a deeply religious person, and he incorporates that into his, like, religion is a core tenet of pretty much any book you pick up of his. Not necessarily in the way you would think. Not like it's not like he's going up on a soapbox and preaching to you or anything like that. But religion always forms a critical part of any society he creates, and his characters tend to be like people of faith. And honestly, it's beginning to become the most fantastical thing about these books to me, because not everyone is faithful. Like not everyone cares about religion to the extent that he portrays in these books. Like throughout these novels, the one major exception I could think of to somebody not being like religious is Jasna, and one of her major defining traits throughout the entire world is the fact that she's not. She defies religion in that regard. So like it's such a huge deal that she is not religious. So like it's really, I wouldn't say it's grating on me, but it is a pet peeve at this point, because it's not realistic in any way, shape, or form. When he usually does such a great job of creating complex societies that feel like they could be real in another place and time. But yeah, that was it. I think that's pretty much all I really have to say about this book. It was another really great installment in the series. Like, from when I first read The Way of Kings, this series cemented itself immediately as one of my favorite fantasy series along with just one book. And like this book Words of Radiance just reinforced that opinion for me. I really enjoyed this, and like, even though this is a reread, I think this is the second or third, probably the third time I'm rereading it. And even so, like the sheer enjoyment I get out of reading these stories, it's on a whole other level. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this series, about this book. Yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.